I was promised there'd be no violence, and then they passed out paddles. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm gonna hope that you won't use those on me. We're going to talk just a little bit about some things that are going on throughout the county, economic development projects that some of you are more familiar with than others, some of them that you've heard of or maybe have heard rumors about, and just I'm hoping to provide some clarity today. I don't have the answers on everything, and there may be a few things I have to jot down. Hey, I need to find out more about that and follow up with Tom, and he can get the word out to y'all. And then after I get done talking, I've asked my good friend Sharice Cartwright, wave Sharice, in the back of the room to give you a little bit of a briefing about what's going on at the north end of the county. I'm going to ask for a quick show of hands. Who here lives south of Exit 7? Okay, so we've got a few folks that live, who lives on Harriet's Bluff Road? Okay, we've got one or two that live on Harriet's Bluff Road. Does anybody live north, who lives north of Exit 7? All right, we've got a few. We've got a couple. All right, well, Sharice is going to talk to us about what's going on at the north end of the county, because I just don't think a lot of us even think about that. The fact that Camden goes all the way to Exit 26, right? So there's a lot of things going on up there. The market is really starting to develop up there, and I think it'll be encouraging or maybe even surprising for some of you to hear about that. All right, so let's go right into this. Thank you. I want to start off with a quick slide about Camden's economy in general. I think sometimes we like to say, well, gosh, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Why are we not doing as good as so-and-so, so-and-so? Truth is, Camden's doing very well. Oh, I have a pointer. Dangerous. The truth is, Camden's doing very well. There's only one county on the coast of Georgia that on most economic development measures is doing better than Camden County. Can anybody guess what county that is? Thank you, Ken. Nice try, Tom. Actually, no. Bryan County. Thank you, Fred. Bryan County is about the only county in coastal Georgia and southeast Georgia that's doing better than Camden County on most economic development measures. Bryan County is where Hyundai recently located. They're hiring 8,000 people, many more than Bryan County can possibly provide. Many of the suppliers that are related to Hyundai have already started moving in. There's a tremendous amount of investment. That's a $5 billion private investment into their economy. So Bryan County, by most measures, by all measures really, is doing better than Camden. But other than that, we were better than Glenn County with St. Simons and all the things that are going on there in Brunswick. Better than McIntosh County with all the cute stuff they've got going on in Darien and their new hotels and restaurants there. So when you look at most economic development measures, Camden County is doing pretty well. So I want y'all to be proud of yourselves and proud of your community. I think we tend to, like most people do, we look at our flaws, and we've got some, but we're doing pretty well. Extremely low unemployment rate, like most of this area has. That's tough in some degrees, right? It's good for the people who live here, but when projects look at your area, when companies are looking at your area and considering moving here, they say, well, where in the world would I find people? Anything less than 4% is considered full employment. We've got an unemployment rate of 2.9%. So what that basically means is anybody who wants a job in Camden County has a job. They may not have the job they want, and that's what we try to emphasize, is there's opportunity to upskill existing employees, get them to move into different job roles. And what that'll mean is the employers on the bottom end of the socioeconomic scale will always be kind of scrambling for young workers, and they'll upskill and they'll move to a different position. That's kind of the way it's supposed to work, right? McDonald's was never meant to be a career path. Median household income, pretty good. I'm sorry, y'all. Over $61,000 for median household income. That's really good for South Georgia. It's really good for a lot of areas, higher than Nassau County, Florida. And obviously the base skews that, right? So we've got 10,000 jobs on base. You've got Lockheed, General Dynamics, BAE, TRF. It's not unusual for someone in their 30s to make well over $100,000 a year working at TRF. So that skews that number quite a bit. Very high school graduation rate from one of the top schools in all of Georgia, one of the top 5 school systems in the state of Georgia, and we've got a 95% graduation rate. So again, very good. Median home value is a little less than in Chatham County at 300,000, and that is a blessing and a curse, right? 300,000 is a great median home value. You look at it and say, wow, look at all our property values going up. But then you think about the fact that workers moving here or young people getting jobs here have got to buy a $300,000 house. That's a challenge. So, and that's not unique to Camden County. It's going on everywhere across the country, certainly all over the Southeast. As home values skyrocket, wages aren't keeping up at the rate that would allow a young person to reasonably expect to buy a home. That's why you're seeing this massive increase in multifamily rentals, apartments. That's not the way to build a wealth economy in your area, is to have everybody rent, but they got to have a roof over their head. And these apartment developers know that, and they're coming to town to take advantage of that. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the way it works. There's a market for it. All right, so I always like to point out to people, this is a slide that I use when I'm talking to people maybe that aren't from the area. But just to emphasize, we have a lot of great things that make us very attractive, as you know. It's a lot of the reason why some of you are here, I think. We're uniquely positioned. We're close to a lot of things, right? So we're close to the port of Jacksonville. We're close to the port of Brunswick, port of Savannah, the Jacksonville International Airport. I always tell people in Jacksonville I can be at the airport before they can. I can be there in about 20 minutes from my office. 26 miles of I-95 runs through Camden County. That's very attractive to a lot of companies who like to be close to the interstate for quick access to markets. And then, I mean, right in between, with Cumberland, Jekyll, Amelia Islands, we've got a lot of wonderful tourism opportunities too. And that's a big part of our economy. It's not a part that I deal with in particular, but it's a big part of our economy. Kings Bay, last survey that I can remember being done relative to that was in 2016. Georgia Southern did a survey of Camden County to determine the impact that Kings Bay has on our economy. At the time, it was 73% of our economy. Think about that. So that's not only the base itself, but the contractors, the spouses, the kids in school, the homes that are sold. 73% of our economy. I put 70%, but it was 73. 500 to 600 transitioning military per year. My neighbor, I live over in Laurel Island. My neighbors on both sides of me are retired military. They retired when they were in their late 30s. Still had a lot of work life to offer to new companies. One of them is a nuclear engineer. I mean, that's incredible, the amount of talent and brain power that stays. Many of them want to stay in this community. If you've got your kids in what we just identified as one of the top school systems in Georgia, why would you want to leave? You live in someplace like Cumberland Harbor or Osprey Cove, you're enjoying your life, you want to stay here. So many of them look for job opportunities. That's something I constantly emphasize to people considering moving to this area. Just by show of hands, how many retired military we have in the room? All right, good deal. Thank you all. Back in, I'm going to reference 2016 a lot. I don't know why a lot of this information came out then, but we'll have to get some updated studies. Back in 2016, we had a workforce study done where we asked employers in the area to give us the aggregate data of where their employees live. Just give me zip codes. So the hospital system, the school system, TRF, Lockheed, a lot of these companies just gave us a big list of zip codes. And we had those plotted on a map. And it showed that we draw employees on a regular basis from St. Johns County on a daily basis, all the way up to just outside Savannah. That's pretty incredible that people drive that far. And it may mean that they got this job and their kids were already in school down there and they didn't want to jerk them out of school or whatever. But for a good paying job, people will drive. So that, again, when I bring a company in and they say, "Ooh, that 2.9% unemployment rate concerns me, James. I don't know where I'm going to find people," and I show them an objective report, not statistic, an objective report that shows no, employers in this area can reasonably expect that people will drive over an hour to get to a good job, and we can prove it. That helps reemphasize that we do have a good workforce here. Um, it's not all, rainbows and butterflies, though. We do have some challenges. We all know that. Um, I've seen some of you down at Target in Yulee. I've pulled up to tables beside you in restaurants in Fernandina, but that means I was there too, right? So I can't cast that stone too far. Um, Georgia Power, I saw Diallo walk in the room. He's my Georgia Power rep. Thank you, sir. I had them do a research report for me a couple years ago that was called a leakage report. It sounds like a urology thing, but they did a retail leakage report to determine where money was being spent by residents of Camden County. The vast majority of it, I hate to say, was going across the line to Florida for retail, restaurants, things like that. Things that we really corner the market on here. Everybody ready? Gas stations and dollar stores, right? Yeah, we were rocking those. But anyway, there's opportunities to get better there. We all know that. We're all trying to attract better places for people to shop and spend their time and dine with their families. And that will happen. Let's see. We've got thousands of acres in Camden County that are not suitable for development for various reasons. They're under federal control or state control. As big of a blessing as Kings Bay is, and it is, it's a lot of land we can't develop, right? And it's all off the tax rolls. Cumberland Island, it's great. We love it and we're proud of it, but it's in the same island chain with St. Simons, Jekyll, Amelia. Right in the middle is Cumberland Island, completely undeveloped and can't be developed. Contributes in no way to our tax dollar, to our tax revenue, or almost no way. And then there's wetlands issues. When I get contacted by a project and they need 50 acres, 100 acres, 200 acres, best of luck cobbling together that much land that is not riddled with wetlands that are governed by the Army Corps of Engineers and extremely expensive to develop. So that is a challenge. But some of these opportunities here, or some of these challenges, also result in some opportunities. We're seeing a fast growth in small retailers in Camden County, all up and down State Road 40. You can see that little restaurants and service industries that are popping up. I like to tell people that I've got access to the big city, but I don't have to live there. I think we all enjoy that. That military retiree income. A lot of the retirees that do choose to stay here, they spend their money here, and we appreciate that. And then, even though this is a lot of land that can't be developed, it lends itself well to an ecotourism economy, right? Folks who come here that want to stay here, travel to Cumberland Island, travel to Okefenokee, do those kind of things. So we need to emphasize that we do have those opportunities. All right. So these are some active projects we're going to talk about today. Cumberland Inlet in St. Mary's, I know everybody wants to hear about. SG Blocks in St. Mary's, pre-engineered metal buildings that we just abbreviate as PEMB. Specialty structural products, I'll fill you in on that. Pigmental Studios, I was just there yesterday. That was really coming along nice. We'll do that part. The St. Mary's Commerce Park, which is the former airport. Plug Power, which is in Kingsland, Camden Woods, Gateway Logistics Center, and the future Camden Commerce Park. We'll talk just a little bit about that. Some other things that I really don't have a whole lot to do with, but I know everybody wants to know about. Exit 1, what's going on there? What's happening with Publix, right? Why did they clear the land for Olive Garden, but nothing's happened yet? The St. Mary's Gateways, and then what's going on over Bluff. Charisse will handle wherever she went. All right, Elaine. Okay, I know this is a small screen, but I'm assuming everybody in this room has seen images of Cumberland Inlet before, right? It's the project planned and announced at the former Gilman Mill site. So here's Meeting Street right here. There's the existing boat ramp at Meeting Street, the North River, Osborne as it comes into St. Mary's. Sorry, am I holding the mic too far away? This is a 160 slip marina. The dry stack storage currently permitted for 300 dry stack storage. This is a town center that will feature little boutique shops, restaurants, and a hotel right here. These are vacation rentals all in here. Just as a quick reminder, the Joint Development Authority, my group, had this property under contract from 2017 until 2019. We were busy getting a permit for this marina. It took 2.5 years to get that permit through DNR, Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Coast Guard, everybody that was involved with that. 2.5 years. In February of 2019, I'm walking out of the Senate building in Atlanta, and as soon as my feet hit the sidewalk, I check my email. My phone's been going off a lot in my pocket. I check it, and it's a email from the bankruptcy trust that owned the site at the time, telling me that they've been patient enough and they're terminating our contract. And I about lost it, because there I am in Atlanta getting ready to head back to Camden County. I had spent $450,000 of the taxpayers' money and 2.5 years trying to get a permit, and I was about sick. But what he knew at that point was that he had a mill site that now had a marina permit, right? So he thought to himself, cool, I'm not worried about selling this to the Joint Development Authority anymore. I'm now marketing this, which is what he started doing, as a site in Camden County, Georgia, with a marina. And I was content to let him do that because we would achieve the same goal of having it developed. I didn't care who did it. But it was who he was marketing it to. He was trying to market it to some big industrial concerns out of California and some other places who contacted me, and honestly, once they looked at it, had no interest in coming here. But that's who he was reaching out to. I reached out in March of 2019, so that was February. March of 2019, I reached out to Jacoby Development, Jim Jacoby, up in Atlanta, who had made a name for himself with projects like Atlantic Station and the redevelopment of the Porsche headquarters and that kind of thing. It was actually the Ford Taurus assembly plant that he turned into the Porsche headquarters in Atlanta. Reached out to him to find out if he had any interest in developing this site with us, that we did have a marina permit, and he responded fairly quickly that he was interested. He loved St. Mary's, and he'd love to be a part of it. It took us the better part of 1.5 years, I guess, to put the deal together, back and forth with his attorneys and ours and other attorneys we had to bring into the picture. In 2021, he closed on the property in June of 21 and immediately started redoing this marina permit. When we had it, we had put this right here as boat repair. It was going to be fiberglass, paint shops, that kind of thing, where boats would be hauled out and repaired. He said, James, look, I'm going to put condos right here. I'm going to put restaurants right here. Nobody's going to want to sit there and listen to boats be sandblasted and smell fiberglass and paint. So I'm modifying this permit. Those are going to be dry stack storages now. The kind of things that you just call and say, hey, I'm coming down at 1. Please have my boat in the water and ice in the cooler and gas in the tank. Sounded cool. But anytime you change anything in a permit that the Department of Natural Resources has issued, you start over. It took 2 years. In February of this year, he finally got his new permit. So he is permitted now. He's out there, meeting with investors and bringing folks in. Some of the folks that he had in the deal originally are no longer part of the deal. They've pulled out. They've restructured. Keep in mind, this was COVID, right? And this was during that same time period. This marina, I'm just going to be completely transparent with you guys. The way this works, this is a tax allocation district. All right, you hear us say TAD all the time. You're going to hear me say TAD throughout the course of this discussion today. All that means, just for a refresher, I know some of you have been through this before, the increase in property value that is generated on the site, that increment between whatever it's valued at today and whatever it'll be valued at once he builds all that pretty stuff there, that increment in tax dollars can be reinvested in the site. I always tell people the most important part of TAD, tax allocation district, is allocation, where it's allocated. In general, if that wasn't a TAD, the money that he generates would just have to be put into the general fund and spent on normal budget items the way a city spends money. But because it is a TAD, whatever he builds all out here, our deal is when he hits 65 million, when he hits a 65 million threshold in investment, it doesn't mean it's got to be built. Hard investment, hard money on the table to invest. We, the Joint Development Authority, issue the TAD bond to build that marina. Okay. When that deal was done in 2020 and he closed on the property in 21, that marina priced out at about $14 million. That's what it is today. Closer to 30. Okay. That's tough. It definitely provides some challenges. It doesn't mean we can't do it, but it takes more investment to create enough TAD dollars to build that marina. So that's what we're all doing. We're trying to get as many people lined up and to the table and signed such that we can issue the bond to build that marina. Just to make everybody, feel secure about this, the way that works, when that bond is issued, it's specified in our agreement with Jacoby that that bond will only be backed by the dollars generated on that site, by the TAD. So it's not backed by the city, it's not backed by the county. So if something goes wrong, that can't come back on you. Okay. It's important that you guys understand that, because at some point we're going to hit that number and you're going to see in the paper and you're going to see on Facebook that those bonds will be issued to build that marina. And I'd like everybody to at least, I'll have some advocates in this room that when you see on Facebook, oh, what are they doing to us? Whatever. You can either have those people call me, or you can speak to it yourself. But anyway, so that's where this is at. It's taking a lot longer than any of us wanted, but that is how it's working. For the longest time, again, during COVID, we didn't really shut down. My office shut down for a couple weeks, and we worked from home. Some of these investors and people that he's dealing with out of California, out of New York, out of Europe, they're just coming back. It's crazy to me. They'll get down here and say, wow, it's so great to be back among people. What are you talking about? We've been doing this for 2 years. But anyway, we'll see. Just yesterday, his project manager texted me and let me know that part of this they've secured financing for. I don't want to burst his bubble or steal his thunder, rather, but they're making progress. All right, next slide. All right, so did CB end up coming? I guess not. Okay. He is out there? CB, hey, how are you, man? This is, he didn't know he was going to be a star of the show, but this is the Gateway Hotel and Conference Center being planned for what some of you know as the old Gilman Boathouse. We refer to it as the Gateway site in St. Mary's that the city acquired some years ago. CB Yadav and his wife Sugar and his team have been planning for this. This is a view from the river of a rough idea of what the property would look like. If you live in St. Mary's, I should have asked earlier, how many St. Mary's residents do we have? Okay. I figured it'd be kind of St. Mary's heavy. Thank you. You know that the marina has finally opened, right? That's right here. That was built with a boating infrastructure grant that was awarded to the city from the Department of Natural Resources in 2018. Took that long to actually get people lined up, and a lot of marina builders, quite frankly, and a lot of supplies related to building marinas were in Florida after hurricanes, rebuilding, things like that. It's tough to get these big time developers and builders to focus on little old St. Mary's. But finally got that open, and I applaud the city for doing that. But that'll be a transient marina designed for boaters who are working their way up and down the ICW, or they're over in Fernandina or something like that, and they just want to come up for a day or two. They can stay at this beautiful facility and hopefully enjoy all the wonderful things downtown St. Mary's has to offer, spend their money, and then they can get in their boat and head home. So the city is actively working with CB and his team to make that happen. He's got a great group out of Jacksonville, Haskell Engineering, that's helping him put that together. Next. This is SG Blocks. They've actually purchased 22 acres on the former airport site. Do we have any HGTV viewers here? No? Okay, a couple. All right. My mom's a big fan. So this is a group that made a name for themselves building residential and commercial property out of old shipping containers. Right? That's how they got their start. You'll see those cool things sometimes where they have one shipping container this. They kind of put these things together, and they look really nice actually when they're all done. That structure there is entirely built out of shipping containers that they make. Or they put together. They're no longer using shipping containers much because they've become very expensive and very hard to get. So they're building their own modular units. The plan is to build a manufacturing facility here where they will actually manufacture these modular, units. And actually, some of these will be located on the Cumberland Inlet site for some of the commercial development. This is pre-engineered metal buildings, PEMB. You may recognize their billboard at the corner of Point Peter. I don't know if it's still there. Point Peter and Osborne. They had the little guy saluting. It's a veteran-owned company. They currently have a presence right over here in the St. Mary's Airport Industrial Park. They recently purchased 44 acres to build a manufacturing facility here, about 300,000 square feet. They've got another company coming to join them from overseas that makes these insulated panels that go in these buildings. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to take one of your bottles of water here, Tom, if I could. Marco Rubio here. Everybody get that reference? His speech pulls that number. Anyway, so they will be building their manufacturing facility there. They'll add another 85 jobs to that site. And in both SG Block's case and PEMB's case, they have already closed on their property. So that money, the way this works, the city of St. Mary's signed an agreement with us at the Joint Development Authority. All right, good deal. That we will manage this property. We'll take care of handling all the land transactions. That means getting the engineering done, the wetland studies done, the surveys done, working with the potential buyer. We get the transaction closed, and then we turn around and hand a check to the city of St. Mary's. We go ahead and take out whatever we spent on the engineering and the wetlands and the survey, and then we pay the city of St. Mary's. So between SG Blocks and this company, PEMB, I think we paid the city close to $700,000. And that's great. As far as repurposing that old airport, this has been very good. Next, please, Elaine. Specialty structural products. Again, for those of you who live or drive through St. Mary's, you've probably already noticed at the intersection of Osborne and Point Peter, there's a whole lot of land being cleared there. This is the company that's building their new facility there. They already have a couple locations in Georgia. This is what they do: trusses and large building materials for contractors and things like that. With all of the residential development happening in this area, they definitely wanted to have a footprint or a foothold here. So that's what will be built there. About a 30,000 square foot facility. And it's funny, they were the last one to come to the table and the first one to get going. They really want to take advantage of the market while it's hot. This one is very interesting. Pigmental Studios, and I referenced Jill Helton earlier because I took the Leadership Camden group on a tour yesterday, and we went over to their Pigmental's current office, and Jill's working there with Marina Martins, who's the founder of this company, and Jill was kind enough to give our group a tour. Really cool stuff. So Marina has a presence in California, DC, Ireland. One that she's a presence in Ireland that she's opening up. she came to us actually through Jacoby, was introduced to us, and was interested in doing an animation studio here originally. That was going to be it, just an animation studio. And we thought, okay, well, that'll be great. She could take advantage of the Georgia film tax credits. She had some job ideas that would work out well for military spouses and students coming out of high school. And then she greatly expanded her vision for what she wants to do here. She's got about 40 acres under contract at the former Commerce Park, and she's planning really a film campus there. She's already moved into the former Empowerment Church building, and we toured her facility yesterday. Really cool stuff. She's got storyboards and writers and stuff moving in, a sound room. Um, she's got, is it okay to say about the books? Okay. She's got intellectual property rights for a book series, a children's book series called Synchronicity. Serendipity. Sorry. Why, when I mentioned that to my wife, she looked at me like that? Okay. Thank you. Serendipity. Sorry. I said that wrong to my wife. She's like, I've never heard of those books. Um, anyway, but really cool stuff that she's doing, and I've met with her contractors and architect folks. Hopefully, they get started in late first, second quarter of 24. By the time all the infrastructure is in and all that, and she can actually put a shovel in the ground. But she's already doing quite a bit with the building that she's leasing now. Next, please. Maybe I should have started when I was talking about all these companies at the former airport. I should have started with this slide. That was poor planning on my part. So Point Peter Road, okay, Douglas Road over here. This area right here, the southern half of the airport, is what we refer to as the St. Mary's Commerce Park. It was an airport, so there's no water and sewer in it. There's no roads in it, obviously. You don't have people driving through your airport. So what we did after it was closed in 2017. For those of you that remember, Department of Defense wanted it closed ever since 9/11/2001. It took 16 years of back and forth between the FAA and the DoD and the Navy at the federal level to finally get it closed. But anyway, it sits there now, roughly 300 acres of developable flat land, and really what is the highest spot in St. Mary's, one of the highest spots in Camden County, about 13 feet. Yeah, your ears pop when you go up there. So we knew we had to put a road in, and we worked with, my development authority worked with the Development Authority of St. Mary's. Steve, raise your hand. That gentleman right there is the chair of the organization, and approached the state and got a $2.3 million grant from the governor to help us with this road. Thank you for your help with that, CB. And DASM came up with the rest. The Development Authority of St. Mary's came up with the rest, and that is now under construction. If you drive by on Point Peter Road, that's the easiest way to see it. There's a lot of heavy equipment out there moving this and building this road. It's scheduled to be done in March of 24. In addition to building the road, they're putting water and sewer in, water on one side of the road, sewer on the other, and electric is being put in as well. Thank you, Georgia Power. But this is where Pigmental will have their main campus. Sorry, y'all. Pigmental is right here. This is SG Blocks. This is PEMB's new building. This is Specialty Structural Products. Again, that's what's currently being cleared that you can see at the corner of Osborne and Peter. Next slide, please. All right, so that was all St. Mary's. Now we're coming back to Kingsland. Exit 7, Harriet's Bluff Road. That's our existing industrial park. We've had that. The Joint Development Authority developed that industrial park in the late 90s. 96, I think, is when they actually had it all developed out. A lot of that land has been purchased by speculators, and we bought it back over the years. But we had roughly a 20-acre site that had been sitting there off the tax rolls doing nothing for 25 years. The opportunity to go after this company, Plug Power. They're a hydrogen company. You can look them up. They're publicly traded. They provide hydrogen to Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot. That's what they power a lot of their equipment that's in their distribution centers, those massive, multi-million square feet distribution centers, all the little trucks and lifts and all those things that are in there. You don't want them running on diesel because you're indoors and everybody's sucking down that air, right? A lot of them are moving towards hydrogen. Hydrogen is also being viewed as probably the most likely fuel of the future. I know everybody's high on EVs right now and battery powered, and that's awesome. But it has some limitations in a lot of ways. Hydrogen is being viewed as a much more realistic long-term solution. This facility in Coughlin will produce around tons of hydrogen a day, and they ship it out via truck to their customers. All the hydrogen they can produce now is spoken for. They are already up and producing commercially. If you go out there now, though, you'll see they've still got heavy equipment on the site. They're trying to finish it out and grade the land and put down sod and all the pretty stuff. But they're already actually producing hydrogen now. Can you go to the next one, Elaine? That's what the facility looks like. Obviously, that's a conceptual view, but I haven't taken any recent pictures. It is amazing, though. If you drive past Exit 7, you see the big cranes out there, and you see all the work being done. Real quick, I thought this was really cool. When they first broke ground and they were under construction, they were building, they hired a gentleman to be their plant manager from the Marine Corps. He was in the Marine Corps' alternative energy division. I didn't even realize at the time that all of the branches of our service each have their own alternative energy divisions. The Department of Defense is way ahead of the rest of us in terms of adoption of EV and hydrogen, the things, because they have to be, right? But they had him there, and we took him to a Rotary Club meeting early on when he first got here. He was talking to the Rotary Club, and he was explaining how they derive a hydrogen molecule from water using electricity and end up with hydrogen. And one of the guys in the Rotary Club was retired Navy, and he raised his hand and he says, "It's just the opposite of how we derive oxygen from water when we're underway in the subs, through the same process when we ended up with oxygen." And he said, "Do you think it's an accident we ended up here?" I thought, this time I thought it was because I did such an amazing job getting them here. Whatever, it worked, right? They ended up here. He's been able to hire all of his employees so far, but one are local, which I have thought that's really cool. Doing a very high tech thing. This has actually kind of put Camden on the map a little bit. At the national level, the Department of Energy last year approved $8 billion to create what they're calling hydrogen hubs around the United States. That'll be sort of almost like living laboratories where they'll experiment with logistics and shipping and fueling stations and ports and things like that, all around how do we incorporate hydrogen into this mix. The way they're doing it in the Southeast, Southern Company, Georgia Power, Duke Energy, I can't think of who else is involved with it. A lot of these other power companies are actually involved in creating the Southeast Hydrogen Hub. And so Senator Ossoff created a group that meets in Atlanta once a quarter called the Hydrogen Brain Trust. And I got invited. And I thought, I've never gone to anything called a brain trust before. That sounds awesome. I want that on my resume. And now I go up once a quarter to Atlanta and sit at these hydrogen brain trust meetings with people from Hyundai and Kia and Georgia Tech and Georgia Power and Southern Company and Duke and all these awesome, incredible minds. And there I am. And I'm like, I'm from Camden. But it is pretty cool to hear the amount of energy, pardon the pun, that's being used and Plug Power's there. SK Batteries, a South Korean company that is providing the batteries for Hyundai and Kia and some of these others, when we're going around the room, we're all kind of talking, the lady says, in South Korea, we're investing $16 billion in hydrogen development. In the United States, we're only investing in Plug Power. Like all of their investment in hydrogen is investing in Plug Power. I thought, the company we have in Coughlin, really? So I've been really intrigued to watch them develop. I pulled the guy from Plug Power aside and said, look, all these people, Southern Company and Duke and all these people, they've all mentioned you guys. They all want your hydrogen. Sorry, thank you, Tom. They all want your hydrogen. They all say they're going to get their stuff from Plug Power. Can you possibly supply that demand? And he said, No way. No, absolutely not. I said, James, I'm smiling and nodding at this meeting. All of our hydrogen is spoken for. We can help out a little bit, but this is an opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in this market. He said, we're going to keep doing what we do. We're just going to be good at it. But we can't be the answer for everybody. So this is a rapidly changing market. So if you care to, when you get out of here, go home and Google hydrogen and plug power and hydrogen hubs, please do. It's very interesting. All right, another project in Kingsland. So let me just see here. Willie Jules. Everybody know where Willie Jules is? All right, I know Jeannie does. Yeah. Pool supply right there. The road that runs right next to them is Camden Woods Parkway. Ronald Sawyer, who is the developer out at Laurel Island and a few other places, got this land over here under contract and came to us and said, here's the deal. I want to extend Kings Bay Road so that it runs right into my property here. Kings Bay Road so that it runs into my property. I want to develop all this. I want to fix Boone Avenue where it doesn't go all the way down right now. I need to put water and sewer in here because I'm going to develop this on the south side of State Road 40 into restaurants, hotels, gas stations, that kind of thing on the front. In the back, Class A apartments, maybe some big box retail, that kind of thing. And all of this between State Road 40 and Laurel Island Parkway, I'm going to develop this into residential over here. What can you do to help? Private development. We can't just give money to private developers, much to our chagrin sometimes, but that's illegal. So what we did is we're working with the city of Kingsland, the county, and the school board to create a new TAD, a new tax allocation district right here. So again, as he builds, the money that is generated there can be reinvested in that site. He's bearing the expense as a developer for all of the upfront installation of infrastructure, and he'll get reimbursed by that TAD after he does it. That's the way Kingsland likes to use their TAD. It's a good method. It's called the pay-go method or the pay-as-you-go method. So as he builds things, those create value. He gets reimbursed for that. All right. Yeah, this is my little, again, probably wasn't thinking about the order of these slides, but that's just how it works. Whatever the value is today versus what we call the increment, the increased value as you build on it, that results in this incremental TAD fund that can be spent on infrastructure and other public assets at the time, or excuse me, at the site. The real benefit is that this is a catalyst for development that maybe otherwise would not have happened. And after that TAD period has expired, and in the example of the Kingsland TAD I just showed you, that's 10 years, all of that increased value that now hits the tax digest at once. So all of a sudden the county, the school board, the city starts collecting that full tax value after that 10-year period. This is another thing. If you've driven on 95 North to the Savannah area, got on I-16 at all recently, you've seen millions of square feet of distribution center going up, all up and down I-95 and I-16. Now we're getting into the game. So this is a development coming to the west side of 95 at Harriet's Bluff Road, exit 7. This is over 3 million square feet of distribution space that the land's already been purchased. He's got his permits. He's got his wetlands already delineated, and he's got his wetlands permit from the state, from the feds. And he's good to go. So what he will do, the developer of this, he'll go ahead and clear the land. He's got it fully entitled. He'll put the infrastructure in, but before he goes vertical on any building, he'll have a tenant. Right now, he's doing it spec. It's a pretty common way these guys do it. So people say, well, is this Amazon or is this where? I don't know. We don't know who the eventual user will be, but this will fill up. He'll have it filled up with tenants before he even goes vertical. So again, that's 3 million square feet of space on the west side of 95. On the east side of 95, he's got land under contract as well with another 4 million square feet planned. All told, it's close to 8 million square feet of distribution space at exit 7. Think what that will, the image coming into Camden County when you roll in from the north. Right now, it's nothing, 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 nothing Kingsland. You know what I mean? And that will drastically change what you see and feel. Big modern distribution centers going in right there at Exit 7. I mentioned this just only because I need help from an advocacy standpoint, and I know you people vote and talk and everything else, so I appreciate you. Um, Joint Development Authority, what development authorities do, we acquire land, we entitle land, we get the infrastructure put in, and then we market said land to attract companies to an area. The largest site that I have left is 11 acres. I don't often get calls for people looking for 11 acres. They want, decent pieces of land. We have to acquire new land. We're talking with the county commissioners about this. We've been talking to them about it for years. Our current group of county commissioners are very supportive, and what they've told me is, James, you find the land, you get the engineering done, you get the reviews done, you get all the wetlands worked out, and we'll help you buy it. So what we're looking at right now is a piece of land between Horsestamp Church Road and Dover Bluff Road at the north end of the county. We're actually looking at about 4 pieces of land up there. Just because there are large parcels there, and you can find large parcels that aren't so inhibited by wetlands that they're not suitable for development. So that's likely where we're headed next to develop our next commerce park. And again, you'll see those meetings going on. You'll see the stuff on Facebook and whatever. And I just want to explain why we're doing that. We can't compete anymore with our peers to the north and south without some developable land. All I've got. I gotta hurry up. 5. Okay, I gotta hurry up. All right. So other projects, stuff I know you care about, but it doesn't necessarily belong to the JDA. Go ahead, Elaine. The Exit 1 development. This is a big move on St. Mary's part, in cooperation with Rainier, Radiant, their development company, to develop the 1,800 acres at Exit 1 that are on both the north and south sides of St. Mary's Road. Tremendous amount of thought has gone into this. They created a tax allocation district here, another TAD. City of St. Mary's is putting in the infrastructure. Rainier is recruiting top flight developers, residential, commercial, and other developers who will develop this. Honestly, in my conversations with the president of Radiant, he says, James, look at it this way. This development is inevitable. Exit 1 will develop. With the growth of Nassau County, the growth of Jacksonville, we can do this 2 ways. We can either sit here and just let it develop anyway and see what happens. We own the land. We can sell it to anybody, right? Or the city, the county, and Rainier can partner on this and master plan this and turn it into something special, turn it into a destination. And that's what they've done. They master planned it. We're talking pedestrian and bike paths on the south side, monument signs as you come in, welcoming you to historic St. Mary's, architectural overlays that will govern what's built and how it looks. So I think this has been a really smart move on the city's part to get ahead of this. So I applaud their effort. Not my project, but I am willing to help however we can. Go ahead, next. Publix and Olive Garden, I only put this in here because I know it comes up all the time. Publix actually identified 2 sites in Kingsland, one behind Southeastern Bank on Highway 40 and one near Laurel Island Parkway and Gross Road. At that intersection, they identified the site on 40 as their preferred site. It's a little slower in developing than they planned on. There were more wetlands on the site than they anticipated. And that adds time and cost, but they're still scheduled to begin construction by the year's end. That's according to the City of Kingsland Permitting Office, so that's good. Olive Garden, as you know or probably know, they purchased the site in front of Planet Fitness right there. They cleared that land there. There's been some disagreement with the Olive Garden group that develops those restaurants and the owner of the land about what was supposed to be done on behalf of the developer that has not been done. So that has stalled. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Amazing growth in single family homes. And then you can just go ahead into the next slide. Multifamily homes. I know you're seeing a lot of it. A lot of it is workforce housing. It is apartments designed to, again, attract or be an answer for those people who get jobs here that can't afford to build a home here, or at least right now they can't. So a lot of these are very nice developments are popping up all over Camden County. It's a nice solution for us, but we just have to be careful with everything, right? We don't want to turn into a rental community, but at the same time, we've got to have a solution for people to work here but can't afford to buy a home here. All right. What's driving all this? As you know, we're bookended by two rapidly growing markets in Jacksonville and Brunswick. We get this a lot. We get contacted at the JDA from folks who have looked at land in Nassau County that's selling for $150,000 an acre, and we're selling our land in our industrial park for $50,000 an acre. And that's true for other types of property in Camden County. It's expensive, and we certainly look at it and say, wow, who would pay that? But when you see what they're paying other places, we're a much cheaper option. The growth at Kings Bay as they transition to the Columbia class, bring in more personnel. Some of them will be temporary, but we've got a lot of contractors that will be here for years. Those new boats aren't supposed to roll in here until, was anybody know, 2030 now? 28? Yeah, so those contractors will be here for years working on that, and they need a place to stay. Many of them buy or at least long-term rent while they're here. And then, just like I mentioned before, the soaring home prices nationwide have created a demand for workforce housing. Why are some of these projects stalled? Interest rates increased. That's a big deal for Cumberland Inlet. Not only have the prices gone up to build things, the price of concrete, the price of steel, the price of labor. That marina, again, that was projected at $14 million is now almost a $30 million marina. But when we did that, interest rates were 2%. We could get a bond at 2%. Now we're talking 7%. You start looking at a 7% or close to 7% bond rate to finance something. That really makes it hard to get it done. Again, doesn't make it impossible, but you've got to get so many more investors to the table to make that happen. I mentioned steel, concrete, labor costs. So a lot of those pro formas that were done back in 21 that said, okay, this all pencils, right? If this all works, we can make this budget. Those same pro formas don't work now. So we're having to go back to the drawing board and work on a lot of those. This is another factor. It doesn't impact any of these projects that I've mentioned because they've already got their wetlands permits, but a lot of other things. There was a recent Supreme Court case, forgetting the name of it. They determined that a lot of the rules that were being used to govern wetlands were overreach on the part of the Army Corps of Engineers. They were defining things as wetlands that were traditionally reserved for continuous navigable waterways. They were using for the puddle outside this building and calling that wetlands. And that was just shutting development down, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Supreme Court determined earlier this year that was overreach, but they have not issued new rules yet for how we're supposed to interpret that, how developers are supposed to approach those wetlands now. We know it's a good thing. We just don't know exactly how it'll be handled, and as a result, the Army Corps has stopped issuing any permits until they get new rules. So that's kind of stalled some things. All right. Before we go into any questions, because I know we are short on time, can I introduce Cherise?
What I'm going to do is
Okay. Yeah. We'll do questions now.
Yeah, take a couple of questions, just take it from this side or whatever.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure if this is working. Is this working?
I don't know how much time you have at the end of the hour, but I'm sure everybody has schedules. So we'll try to, as soon as this lady gets done with her section of the presentation, which I expect will only take 5 minutes. Okay. We'll go back to James for the Q&A, and then it'll be up to you guys to decide how much past the hour we're going to go. So.
Thank you, Tom. I saw 24 first. Yes, ma'am.
20.
Hold on for a second. Let's get your microphone because we are recording. And
I'm not sure that this is on.
You
Mentioned the success of the opening of the Gateway Project, aka the old Gilman Boathouse. I ride my bicycle there just about every day, and there is a giant. There's plywood that blocks the entrance to the dock. Is that considered open?
Anybody from the city here? No, I guess not. That's right. The soft grand opening is October 2. That's right. Yeah. Thank you. It is done being built, but they have not opened it yet. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
A quick update on US 17 north of our county seat in Woodbine up toward Brunswick. Is DOT going to cooperate and not close that highway?
Good question. So for those of you that don't know, DOT had announced that they were going to do some repair work on 3 bridges north of us here in the Woodbine area, and they would close those bridges over a 3-year period. And they were not providing what we refer to as an on-site detour. This was causing a lot of concern in terms of just people being able to get to goods and services, students being able to get to school, medical care, emergencies, detours from 95, a lot of issues. We have pushed DOT. We've had our federal delegation, because it is federal dollars being spent on a U.S. highway, U.S. Highway 17, reach out to DOT, and they have taken it off their, what they call their let list for December. They're not issuing those funds in December. They're going back and rethinking that. Our hope is that they'll provide an on-site detour, so people have another way to get around there.
Yes, sir. I'm wondering if you have any information on the general aviation airport that's supposed to be developed here in Camden County, and that the $90 million that the cost is projected to be allocated for that is already set aside by the federal government to pay for it in full. Do you know anything about that?
I do. So the way that worked, when the old airport closed, right, the DOD insisted that closed, the FAA cooperated eventually, and they closed that airport. Some funds were set aside as a result of the closure of that airport. The FAA had some funds. And in addition, they told us that if you can identify a site for a replacement airport that meets the long qualification list they had, the federal government would provide 90% of the funds. The state through DOT would provide 5% of the funds, leaving the local community to come up with 5% of the funds to build it, right? Not run it, but to build it. At the time, they did an exhaustive study. They looked at a lot of different points in Camden County. Had to be 500 acres, had to be free of, at least, you can't cobble together 500 acres in Camden County. It doesn't have some wetlands, but they tried to focus on land that would have minimal wetlands impact. Could not be within this radius of Kings Bay, could not be within this radius of the landfill, could not be within this radius of the interstate. I mean, there was a lot of different reasons, cell phone towers and everything else. They finally identified a couple of sites that may work. And as I understand it, the consultant who they engaged to do that, whose name I'm forgetting right now, made a presentation to the county commissioners at their last meeting. They've authorized that consultant to go forward with preparing this package of information on a couple of sites. They'll present that to the FAA and DOT, and if they find it acceptable, they being FAA and DOT, then the county is requesting that the federal government and the state authorize those funds, and they will come up with the 5% to build that airport. This is not this is not Jacksonville. This is not Brunswick. This is not an airport that you need to travel somewhere and you go and catch a flight. This is largely for the folks who are licensed in the area, who may own an aircraft, want to keep it there, fly it, and also for industry. For you're the CEO of a company based in Detroit, and you want to come check, or I'll use Plug Power as an example. They're headquartered in New York, so they want to come down here, visit their plant, and then head back to New York. It's a way for them to do that. So that's the type of airport we're talking about. But I don't know yet if they've identified the final site. All right, so I mentioned that I was going to have a friend of mine come and talk to you guys about North Camden, about all the great things happening there. So this is Sharice Cartwright with Golf Club Realty. She's a good friend and associate. I think you guys are going to be very impressed. If you haven't driven up to the Dover Bluff area at the north end of Camden lately, I would encourage you to do so. It's amazing, the amount of development happening there. And I think sometimes we forget that's still Camden County. Okay, so let me turn it over to Sharice. Hold the microphone closed.
Okay. Thanks, James. James, do you mind handing this out? I don't know if I have enough for everyone in the room. I feel like this room is probably over capacity maybe right now. So if y'all are together, maybe share one. So my name's Sharice Cartwright. I'm the broker and founder of Golf Club Realty on the north end of Camden County. And rewinding 20 years ago, I used to live in Florida, in Palm Beach County, Florida. And when I met my husband, he lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So the north end of Camden County reminds me of Port St. Lucie or St. Lucie County back in the 90s. So that's why I love it so much. I feel like there's a lot of growth potential. There's still a lot of green space. There's some beautiful golf courses up there. And we're a stone's throw away from Jekyll. And I think that's the growth that I'm seeing in the north end of Camden County right now, is that people are saying, oh, I can buy a condo on Jekyll Island, or I can buy a whole house here in a golf course neighborhood in Sanctuary Cove or Maiden Creek, or, oh, I set a timer. That's fine. I stacked my schedule really, really close today, so I really only have 5 minutes and then I've got to run. But I have cards here. If anyone wants to ask any questions or anything, my cards are right here. Y'all can take them and email me or text me, and I can answer questions if I can't get to them today. Do you mind getting the next slide? So District 1, this is my district. I say my district. I don't know if Robbie Cheek or anyone here. Who's the district chair right now? It's Lanny Brandt. So this is District 1, and see how close it is to Glenn County. And I mean, I actually, when I leave Dover Bluff, I just go to exit 29 to get anything like gas, groceries, everything. So it's really kind of like a bedroom community for Glenn County, but the growth is coming there more so than it is. Well, it's coming here, exit 7 and to 1, but on exit 26, I feel like the growth is coming as overflow from Glenn County. Can you get the next slide? Okay, so here I kind of have some printouts for y'all. So if you look, you'll see last year, I don't know how to use this pointer. Oh, here you go. So even though this year to last year we have less inventory, you'll see the sale prices are higher. Like our average sale price is a lot higher this year than it was last year. So less inventory, but our prices are still going up. It's still holding strong, even with the 7% interest rates. Next slide, please. Okay, so here again, just some cutesy graphs. My husband put together this presentation. I don't know how to do PowerPoint, so I was just telling what I needed. And this here just shows you the data of, the single family homes, how it goes from, we're still a good value, even though our prices are steadily increasing, we're still a good value compared to everyone else in Georgia. You can't buy a condo even in Atlanta or anything for the price you can buy a whole house for here in Camden County. Next slide, please. Okay, so here, the market overview here, you can see our zip code on the north end, it's 31565. This is average home value. This is how much we're up year over year. If you get tired of the south side here, I call it the south side. What do we call it? What are we calling this? Not the south. If you want to make a change, you're welcome to call me and come up to my end of the county. I love the north end of Camden County. I call it the forgotten part of Camden County, because when I brought James up there, he was like, wow, I didn't even know this was here. So if anyone else wants a wow experience, maybe we can do a tour bus or something and really seriously, it is a wow experience going up to the north end. Okay, and so demographic and income profile, I got this from Georgia Power, and so it just shows basically the growth, the population count. I mean, we didn't grow so much because still a lot of that county, a lot of the part of the north end of the county, we still have a lot of marsh, a lot of wetlands. So there's about 2,000 to 2,500 buildable lots on the north end of Camden County. The biggest challenge that we're facing right now is infrastructure. Y'all have all the public water and sewer that you want here in St. Mary's, Woodbine, Kingsland. Sorry, guys. I just have to remember one city, and that's Waverly. So, and unincorporated Camden County. So we don't have the infrastructure that y'all have here. So there's a subdivision that I've got a lot of property for sale right now if y'all want to get a good deal and hold on until the market gets better, until we get some infrastructure, in a subdivision called Bridgepoint. I don't know if y'all know Bridgepoint. Anyone here have property in Bridgepoint? Okay, good. Because a lot of the people there that bought back in the 2005, early 2000s, paid like about $100,000 to $300,000 for the lots. And the infrastructure wasn't there at that time, the roads and the water and the sewer. And so that's now being built in. So probably by the end of this year, early next year, we'll have water in there and we can start breaking ground on construction there. Next slide. Okay, we can just look around the room and know what the demographics is. This is it right here in Camden County, basically. And then I think this one is for the north end of Camden County too. This is for exit 26. I did some demographics here. Next slide. Okay, so here's very last slide. The anticipated infrastructure expansion and forthcoming developments in the upcoming years. So James basically talked about all that. The development that's coming here for the development authority is going to affect the north end. It's going to affect the whole county because all of these industries are going to bring people to work, and that's the growth that we're getting. And we're also getting a lot of, on the north end of the county, a lot of overflow, like I said, from Glynn County. We have a strong community. I mean, if you check on the Exit 26 Facebook page, you'll see how active they are. They're very engaged in the community. And anybody here that wants to know more about, any of this, just give me a call. We'll do that tour bus and come up to the north end of the county. Thank you so much.
We started on this side of the room for questions. Now we're going to move over to this side of the room. Who has a question from over here? Yes. Okay, I'll get you the microphone. Reach over to you.
You talked earlier in your presentation about leakage to Florida. There is zero retail shopping in Camden from the north end to the water. Zero. So there's been no attention paid to that. And I've wondered why that Midtown Shopping Center, that's a desolate eyesore. The infrastructure's there, the building's there. Why the city doesn't pay attention to that? Turn it into a small town center, clean it up, make it attractive for the retail shops living in there. And it would be the only shopping center in Camden County. It's just been totally ignored. It's an eyesore. It's hard.
So you're referring to the Midtown St. Mary?
Yeah, they're right across from the school there. There's a full-blown shopping center that's empty.
Here's the challenge with a lot of Midtown.
You're not on.
Sorry. Can you hear me now? I wonder if we'll switch to that other mic.
How about now? No, nothing?
I can just speak up.
Okay. Unfortunately, the Q&A won't be on the video, but we'll get it next time. Is that working?
Yeah, I think so. Is it? Everybody can hear? Yeah, this one's working.
He must have broke it.
I broke it, yeah.
He said don't play with the buttons.
I was clearly instructed not to play with the button. Anyway, the question was about Midtown St. Mary's and the shopping there and the opportunity to develop that. The challenge in St. Mary's, you've got a lot of privately owned property, that being one of them. This not being Russia, we can't make them do that. We don't own them. You know what I mean? We can't make them redevelop that into anything. Now, you would think that a entrepreneurial business person who owns property, commercial property, would want to redevelop that and keep up with the times and make it rent it out, lease it out to commercial developers. But we can make them. We can give them some incentives to do that.
Now you're recording.
Oh, okay. Now I'm recording. Anyway, and so that, honestly, right now, every community development director that the city has had in the tenure that I've been here has tried to come up with a solution to that, to incentivize property owners in Midtown to do something positive with their property, short of going in and fining them. If there's not a public health risk, if there's not some enforceable law that you can say you're in violation of X, there ain't a whole lot you can do. And it's just sort of a constant trap that we find ourselves in St. Mary's. There's so many abandoned buildings that are owned by absentee owners. They don't live here. As long as they pay their taxes every year, you're kind of stuck. I will say, I'm going to embarrass her husband real quick. Jamie Stein is the new community development director for the city of St. Mary's. We've had some good talks. I think she's actually really trying to develop some architectural overlays and some incentives, and may even do another tax allocation district that would allow the city to say, look, we can't force you to do anything, but if you'll do X, we can do Y. We can provide some infrastructure. We can pretty up the front of your, the right of way in front of your development. We can, whatever, some landscaping, those kind of things to help your development. At the end of the day, though, it's that private property owner's decision if they choose to take the city up on that offer or not. Yeah, because I'm with you. I drive past there. Anybody know why Belk stays? I mean, it makes no sense, right? The only reason they stay is they pay $2 a square foot. That is the only reason that makes business sense for them to stay. Any other retailer in any other situation would have left a long time ago. So I'm glad they haven't, because it gives us some anchor. I'm hoping with some new development. Honestly, nobody from the city's here. Okay. There's some other development coming to Midtown that I don't think is out for public consumption yet, so I'm not going to share this on the city's behalf. But there's some other development coming there that I think will help with that. Yes, ma'am. We were so close. So, no. I'll just be completely honest with you. There's nothing right now on the table for Woodbine that I can firmly point to. We did have a project that we were referring to as Project Olive Oil. Does anybody know Robbie Cheek up in Woodbine? He grows olives, makes his own olive oil, and he was the civil engineer helping us with this project, so we just came up with that code name. Anyway, it was a bus manufacturer out of Ohio they do EV and hydrogen buses. They were looking at some property that the Proctor family owns right off of exit 14. We got the engineering done, and it looked like it was a good deal, and we were incentivizing them and all that. And at the end of the day, they couldn't make their financing work. They still owed a couple $1 million to the state of Ohio, who had incentivized them, and they were going to be fined if they left Ohio. It just turned into a mess. But anyway, that's not happening. I will tell you, though, the Proctors have signed, and I hope I'm not sharing anything I shouldn't, but they've signed with a group out of Jacksonville that is helping them do some design work for Exit 14, some planning work for Exit 14 on where it makes sense to have commercial development, where it makes sense to sell off some of that land as residential. Because unlike the rest of North Camden, Exit 14 is its own little isolated case. There is water and sewer there, all the way out to the west side of I-95. It was installed to serve that truck stop. So there's potential for rapid development there. So we'll see if that happens, but none planned right now. Yes, sir.
Yeah, whatever happens with multi-recreation.
I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm going to take the last question first. As far as I know, yes, there is a McDonald's coming to St. Mary's. That's another thing that the Community Development Department is working with McDonald's on some architectural standards and things like that. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but they're really trying to emphasize, look, if you're coming to St. Mary's and you're a national, big-time developer with deep pockets, we're going to hold you to these standards, and you're going to build the type of facility we want architecturally, landscape, access. It's going to look and feel like you are in St. Mary's. It's not going to look like you just pop that up on the side of the interstate somewhere. And companies like McDonald's can afford to do that. At the old Hardee's location. So anyway, and your first question was about Epic, which was the big it was originally conceptualized as an amusement park type deal, and then the latest renderings of a couple years ago were sports tourism. still active. I've had recent discussions with that landowner and the developers involved. I think the challenge there, they've never been able to get everybody to the table at the same time. There's hotels planned, there's restaurants, there's sports, there's all these different things that are planned. They've just never been able to get everybody to the table at the same time, but they're still working on it. Yes, John.
No mention of the spaceport. No.
I'm sorry.
In the water?
Did you say something?
And its economic impact?
Spaceport. So keep in mind, Spaceport was not a joint development authority project. It was until 2012, and then the county took it over. And since 2012, it was a county commissioner project. As far as I know, that project is dead. The only things left to do are to kind of sort through all the remaining lawsuits between Union Carbide and the county, and issues like that. The county invested an awful lot in living up to their end of the bargain. Union Carbide had some obligations as a landowner they were supposed to meet as part of that deal that they did not. They were supposed to address a lot of issues relative to that site that they never did. So there's some litigation back and forth with that. But as far as the actual project, I think that's probably past us now. Yes, sir. Yeah, yep, sorry.
It's great to hear all of these developments that are going on and employers in the county so needed. I would wish we would have gotten that Bryan County. Exactly. Yeah. Having said that, has there been or is there in place a plan to train our young people to be skilled labor force for future potential developers and employers on a long-term basis? Because we lose a lot of our young people because they don't see any vested interest in the future in the force. Right. Because they lack that. But since we have all these great projects going on and seemingly projecting for the future, all the employees, all the developers, have they reached back into Camden, back into our school system to introduce their employment opportunities and what it would take for our young people to be long-term workers, where they have a best interest in the future of Camden, so it grows and that's what it should be. Because we have great talented and gifted young people who leave here every year. Yep. We graduate. We have graduated over 3,000, 4,000 young people the last 5 years.
Right. Really good. Really good point. It's kind of a two-part question. Are there efforts going on to develop this workforce? Yes. For those of you that don't know, Camden County High School, in addition to being all the other great things that it is, has one of the best CTAE programs, career technical agriculture and engineering programs in the state. Welders, bricklayers, construction, they win competitions at the state and national level every year. Really architecture. There's incredible robotics. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of all the different programs they have. So they produce these amazing kids. We've got the Coastal Pines Technical College that has opened here back in, what was it, 2019? I guess they opened their campus. This campus here, if you've driven out May Creek Road, but behind Cracker Barrel and look, the existing campus is completely full. All their space that they built originally is spoken for and overflowing. They've already had to start construction on a new phase of Coastal Pines. A lot of what they're doing is relative to the Navy. Quite frankly, it's relative to TRF. They're producing welders and other things at the request of TRF. I just heard yesterday that Coastal Pines is starting an EV program, training students to work in the electric vehicle industry. So we'll see where that goes. But the second part of your question, I will regrettably say no, that we've only had one company two. We've had two companies that have come to the community and have said, hey, I want to get into your school system and I want to invest and start some working with students and develop some long-term pathways. The one of them was ABL Space Systems. It would have had Spaceport come to fruition, and they visited our folks at the technical programs at the high school and at the college. They donated a pretty large sum of money to the engineering program at the high school, robotics program rather, and went away. They figured out pretty quick that we couldn't define when that spaceport was going to open, and they went to Florida, and they now have an operation in Cocoa Beach. The other company was Yamaha Marine. They went to the high school and to the technical college and said, look, we'll provide motors, we'll provide textbooks, we'll provide instructor training, but we need to develop some kids who can work on boats. We know you're trying to develop your marine industry here. We think this is the ideal place to do it. The actual quote from the gentleman from Yamaha, he said, if you give me a truckload of marine techs right now, I can have them all jobs up and down the coast of Georgia and Florida by the end of the day. The school started to adopt that program. They got an instructor signed up for training. He was going to go up to Kennesaw, Georgia, Yamaha's headquarters, for training, and COVID hit. And it hasn't been picked up since. We need to get them back here. I don't know if you saw, but Yamaha actually purchased land in Jacksonville to develop a training program at a marina in Jacksonville. So those are the only two employers right now that have expressed interest in doing that. But we need more. And I'll just say real quick, and I know Tom's trying to give me the hook here. The reason Bryan County and those areas in that area have been so successful is the cooperation of Georgia Ports Authority and the state of Georgia. There's nothing we can do to replace the fact that Savannah is one of the busiest ports in the United States. It just is what it is. So all that development you see in that area is a direct result of that port being there. The state of Georgia sold a large piece of property that they owned right outside the port. They sold it to Amazon and contributed those funds to help prepare that site for Hyundai. They acquired that land in 2014. Hyundai didn't come and actually land on that site until 2022. But it just shows you the cooperation and the patience you have to have. But we're going after their suppliers. If there's any suppliers for Hyundai that we can attract to our area, we'll darn sure do it. I do one more?
Yeah, let me just throw in here. I'm not here to shut this down. It's really up to James and his schedule and your schedule, okay? But I did want to add something that I will post on Camden on the roundtable. Last night I received, or yesterday afternoon, I received a flyer talking about some training. I shared it with you, but you probably haven't seen it. Do you remember seeing it?
I did, yeah.
And the name of it was Manufacturing Processing Training. So there's training scheduled south of Savannah. I'll send a flyer on the Camden Roundtable. Right now it's on the Neighbors Helping Neighbors website. So if anybody's interested in people looking for manufacturing type training, there was some certification involved in it. And
it's through WorkSource Georgia and JCB, which is the big heavy equipment manufacturer outside of Savannah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll share that on the Roundtable Facebook page along with other places. But I do want to slip that in since that was a question. Now, what is your schedule about?
I honestly can give it about.
We can't get rid of anybody yet. It looks like.
I can give it about another 3 minutes, and I'm going to have to scoot to an 11:30.
Okay, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So the way. Occasionally, we get approached often by these companies. So the way solar works in Georgia, a developer will get land under contract, and they'll get permitted. They'll get cooperation from the local community to say, okay, we would allow solar to be built there. Once they have that in hand, they can pursue a contract with Georgia Power. Georgia Power does these RFPs every couple of years, these requests for proposals for solar. We've had that happen multiple times in the time that I've been here. We had a group out of Atlanta called Beltline Solar that we had approved permits for and tax incentives for a large solar project in Woodbine. It was actually a former Sea Island property. And it didn't come to fruition. They didn't end up getting the contract from Georgia Power. That's how all these works. They tie up the land. They pursue that contract with Georgia Power. If they don't get it, they just walk. They actually stiffed us for about $10,000 in legal fees. But they just said, we're not coming to Camden, so we're not worried about it. What are you going to do? So they do that often. There's been a few small solar developments. Bill Gross has done one off of 17 between Kingsland and the Florida line. He's probably done with the largest solar development in Camden thus far. He's the first one, but we do occasionally get them that approach us. We haven't had any wind projects express any interest in Camden yet. I don't know why. What I always wondered is with our tides, with 8-foot tides that change, 4 times a day, right? High, low in St. Mary's, why we don't have any tide turbine type things. I've talked to Georgia Tech about that, and they say, oh, that's cute. And they don't ever express really any interest in doing something, but that to me would seem logical. Anybody else? And I'm going to have to run, y'all. Yeah.
Way up here, I drove up Gross Road, and there's wooden stakes with little orange things blocking them at the top. What's going on?
On Gross?
Yes. Is that part of Radiant, or is that just a margin?
Not. Are you talking Haddock? Yeah, on Haddock Road. Yeah, there's some residential development happening there on the north side of Haddock. There's also a property transitioning or acquisition taking place between property that Monica Moore owned close to St. Mary's Road there at Point Peter. She's selling some of that, so I think that's being surveyed. I don't know who's going to end up there. Yes, sir.
Spin off of the first question. Has GDOT done any traffic planning in the St. Mary's? Haddock Road's a mess right now.
It is. Yeah.
Three trucks turning in there.
It is awful, and it's dangerous. There's several points at St. Mary's Road, Haddock Road, and then getting on and off of 95 that are dangerous. We've been approaching GDOT about that since 2015 to get them to re-engineer that. They have, what they've told us is that yes, they have done some engineering work there. I don't know what it's going to look like when they're done. I know they've moved the stop bar back to move the trucks back from the intersection of Haddock and St. Mary's Road so they don't block that intersection. As a result of that Exit 1 plan between the city and Radiant and DOT, they are going to drop the speed limit on St. Mary's Road. I know that may not please everybody, but they're trying to create more of a boulevard type, destination type feel. And with all the building going on there and the trucks coming through, we actually had to get Kings Bay to sign off on that. Because if you remember, that road is owned by the Department of Defense. St. Mary's Road is a DOD highway. There's only so many approved cuts that are in that road, and they have to approve anything that happens on that road. But they are going to drop that speed limit there. Yes. The old Millhouse Hotel, that is going to be a Parker's Market.